animation time. By the mid-50s, Walt was putting more focus elsewhere. He was going more towards live-action films, TV, and Disneyland. So this left the 9 old men to kind of take reins for a lot of this stuff. Which I think, I think it worked out. I liked it. I liked their decisions for the most part. So Sleeping Beauty started development in 1951. And it's really funny. I didn't know this, but there is discarded pieces from Snow White and Cinderella that were put in this film. I had no idea. So those were the prince was supposed to escape from a castle lair from Snow White, so that ended up being Prince Philip in Maleficent's battle. And then the dream sequence of dancing on clouds, that was supposed to be in Cinderella.
I know that was a thing that they really, really, really liked.
Yeah. So by mid-1953, director Wilfred Jackson had recorded dialogue and assembled a story reel and was about to commence the meeting of Aurora and Philip, but Walt decided to ditch the sequence, the forest sequence. He didn't want to do it originally.
But that's
the
only part I really like in the whole movie.
I know. And so this removal, they decided to push the film back to 1955. So the story writers rewrote the story, but Walt was still not satisfied. I feel like this is a theme. He's never happy. There was now doubts of the kiss being climactic enough to end the story. So the romance in the first act was dialed up to like an 11, which I don't know. I didn't see it either. I know, you're looking at me like, what? But I know. There still was issues with it not being romantic. So this is weird. I didn't know this. There was going to be a scene where the king, I think it was King Stefan, was making a scavenger hunt, which is really weird. I don't know why he would do that.
I don't know. That feels more like a King Hubert thing to do.
It might be.
That feels like that's up his alley.
You know what? I said probably a King Hubert thing. He's a little weird. But that's where originally Prince Philip and Aurora were supposed to meet. But it was dropped because it drifted too much from the story, which, I don't know why.
How would she be part of...
I think she like stumbled upon in the forest sort of thing. But that's what happens in the movie anyway, so I don't know.
All right.
And just a neat little tidbit here in my research. I found that Prince Philip was named after Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh.
Who is currently married to I guess technically because we're Canada, but Queen Elizabeth II's husband.
Yeah, and I didn't even put the connection together, but okay. Great.
Who's Philip? There's a Philip?
There's a Philip who? No, don't worry about him.
He lives a quiet life.
So in December 1953, Jackson suffered a heart attack, so Eric Larson took over directing from him. This is kind of where things start getting crazy. So under Larson, the film was to be released now in 1957, so it just keeps going back and back and back. His unit was assigned to do the forest sequence, which is now back in, and Walt really wanted it to be, quote unquote, a moving illustration, the ultimate animation, and he didn't care how long it took to get completed. So this pushed things back further.
It's funny that you say that, because when I was watching it, I was like, I feel like Walt had more to do with this than some of the other ones we've watched, because it got a little bit more avant-garde.
A little bit.
And every time I see stuff like that, I'm like, oh, Walt was here.
He left his little tag. So one of the 9 old men, Milk Hall, would later blame the next delay on Walt, saying that Walt wouldn't attend story meetings, actually. He couldn't get the damn thing moving, Milt Hall said. Which is funny. I guess Walt was busy doing his TV and Disneyland and stuff like that.
I feel like we've hit the point where he was like, Disneyland is everything.
I think so too. I think he's really starting to pull away from that. I think he's kind of losing his interest in animation. I don't think it's gone, but I think he's starting to, broaden his horizons.
Mm-hmm. He was definitely someone who wanted to push boundaries.
Definitely.
And I feel like when he thought he had pushed most of the boundaries in animation, Disneyland was just this blank canvas that he could really go crazy on. It had never been done before.
Right.
And I can see how that would appeal to his personality more.
Definitely. I see it too.
But it sucks for the animators who needed his
guidance and stuff, right? So, continuing on to throw another wrench in the machine, Walt replaced Larson and put Clyde Geronimi. I can't say his last name.
Clyde Geronimi.
This has been the third director now?
This is the third one. Yep.
Jeez.
Yep. So then he got some help this time. So Wolfgang Reitherman helped Clyde doing the sequences and stuff, particularly the dragon battle. And it was really funny. He was quoted in saying that we took the approach that we were going to kill that damn prince. I think that's hilarious. And that battle is quite... I thought it was quite aggressive. Like, I was like, oh, you might die. If I didn't know better. But anyway, so lots of craziness going around. Lots of directors in and out. And that's why it was pushed back so many times. But let's move into art direction. Kay Nielsen, he did concept art for Night on Bald Mountain. He did some stylized sketches for the Sleeping Beauty in like 1952, so earlier in. And I feel like there was a couple points in the movie that you could kind of see that, especially like the
Maleficent's castle.
Yeah, the demons dancing around the fire and stuff like that. So that was kind of neat. This is so crazy. So the artistic style originated when John Hench observed a unicorn tapestry in the cloister. Cloister? Think so.
Cloisters.
My handwriting is atrocious. I should type. But it's located at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City.
I've seen this.
Oh, well,
legit.
There you go.
I know. This is the thing that it's in like every place in Harry Potter. They like replicate it.
Oh, really?
There's one unicorn. It's the sort of green and dark red background, and there's the white unicorn. There's kind of like fences around it. It's
okay. It's kind of ringing a little bit of a bell, but I'll have to look it up.
Yeah. It's very recognizable. They use it a lot in Harry Potter as like just background castle art.
Oh, that's so fantastic. I'm glad you know what it is.
But I've actually seen it live.
And you're going to go see it again.
I am going to go see it again.
And be like, I know what this is all about.
I'm super stoked. Maybe I'll take a picture and put it on our Instagram of just me like thumbs up in front of it.
Look. So Hens returned to the Disney studios and he brought reproductions of the tapestry, and Walt was like, yeah, we could use that for Sleeping Beauty. Super cash, no big deal. Okay, here's another name I'm gonna struggle with.
Okay, I'm ready.
Eyvind, Eyvind, Earl.
Eyvind Earl.
I'm gonna refer to him as Earl. He joined the production in 1951 as an assistant painter on Peter Pan. Sorry, I said production, I meant earlier. He was later promoted to a full-fledged painter in a Goofy cartoon. He was working on the backgrounds for Sleeping Beauty, and he loved this style. He felt so free doing this, and his style is more square and boxy, and it's described as cold.
Okay.
It's described as cold, so he loved it. And he included tons of inspiration from Italian Renaissance and Japanese paintings.
It's funny that you say the square thing, because I noticed that some of the trees in the background were square.
Super square, like perfect squares and stuff. Which is crazy because it's not very organic, but it is stylish. This movie is like pure stylistic.
Yeah. Very tapestry-esque.
Oh, yeah, super. So, when Clyde became the supervising director, these two artists clash. Clyde did not see the beauty in this stylization. Earl ended up leaving the studios in March of 1958 before Sleeping Beauty was completed to take a job at the John Sutherland studio. As a result, Geronimi had made Earl's paintings softened up. They like completely softened them up and diluted them. It's still there, but less so. They kind of softened the edges and tried to keep the medieval texture, which is, I see it. Especially in the opening sequence. That stuff's crazy. So getting into a little bit of the animation, live action models were used again. And this time they were mostly filmed in costumes that were very similar to what they were wearing, so that they could get the most amazing reference possible. Mr. Milk Call, I can't believe he said this. Let me tell you what he said.
I'm so interested.
He objected to this method, calling it a crutch, stifling the creative effort. Anyone worth his salt in this business ought to know how people move. And to me, as someone who's done animation, that blows my freaking mind. Milk Hall is amazing, but I can't believe he does not like doing this, because how do you not do reference? I don't understand.
He kind of sounds like he was a grumpy old man.
Like, I don't know. You know how people move, and it's hard when you're sitting at a desk trying to think of doing a certain action without doing it at least yourself or seeing someone do it.
Also, he was someone who had a lot of experience, so maybe he, as a person, was like, yeah, of course, but if someone's starting out or doesn't have as much experience, I feel like it would be more helpful to have that footage.
Well, I don't know, Mr. Glenn Keane, he's a pretty big deal, and he still uses live action reference, so I think maybe it's just him being a little salty. That's my opinion, but
you said the name Glenn Keane and my heart literally just
fluttered.
Just fluttered for a minute.
Yeah.
If I had an animator crush, that would absolutely be who it is.
Him and Mark Hen.
Oh.
Anyways, I can't believe you said that. I was like, no way. No way, Milk Hall. Get out of here. Helen Stanley was the model for Sleeping Beauty, and she also did Anita later on for 101 Dalmatians. Ed Kemmer was Prince Phillips, and Eleanor Audley, she did Maleficent and she did the voice, which is pretty darn cool. She was able to do both. So a little bit on character animation. This is kind of crazy that the characters were made specifically to match the stylization of the background. Usually it's kind of the other way around. You start with your characters and then you go kind of more backgrounds, at least in my experience. So I thought this was really strange. They did it this way. I guess they were really going for that feel. Oh, some of the artists, like, they really liked Earl's work, but then they grew super depressed from working with that style because it was considered cold, flat, and too modern for the fairy tales. So a lot of animators were really unhappy with it.
Oh.
Yeah, I know, it's too bad. But Walt insisted, we're going to keep it. And he did. Mr. Frank Thomas, one of our favorite 9 old men, he would often complain to Ken Peterson about the style. Frank developed a red blotch on his face due to stress and frustration of this, which he needed to go to the doctor weekly to have it go away.
Oh.
So, poor guy. It was a trying time. And then Ken Anderson complained that it was a struggle to force himself to draw that way. So people were really just like, fuck.
This movie was a struggle.
It was, and this might just help put a little more light to it. Why? It was claimed by an animator on the production that the Aurora unit was so cautious about the drawings that the cleanup animators produced 1 drawing a day, which translated into a second of screen time a month. So they were moving at a snail's pace here, like putting 1 drawing out a day that's cleaned up. That's insane. That's so slow. So slow. And I just have one last little fun fact here, because I like this one. Someone we're going to talk about real soon, and I'm really excited. Chuck Jones is on this film. He was on the film for 4 months, but he's uncredited.
Of course. Of course.
Yeah.
It's okay. Chuck Jones will get his due.
That's right. Should we head over to my favorite corner?
Voice Cast Corner?
Voice Cast Corner.
I love this corner.
Me too.
All right. So I just have one quick note about music before we get started that I thought was
yeah.
kind of interesting. So there was a musician strike in 1957, and therefore the score was recorded in Berlin. So Mary Costa played the part of Aurora, and how she was discovered is she sang When I Fall in Love at a dinner party in 1952 and was then approached by Walter Schumann, who asked her to audition for the part. She originally auditioned with her southern accent, but was asked to do it in an English accent. She was an opera singer. She was an operatic soprano, and you can hear that in her voice.
Oh,
so
yeah.
much control. And she regarded working at Disney as a wonderful part of her career. And she actually wrote an open letter to her fans because she couldn't keep up with responding to fan mail.
Wow.
She wrote this letter on her 86th birthday. She was trying to respond to every piece of fan mail that she got until she was 86.
Holy smokes.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's so nice of her.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Lovely. The character of Aurora has the least amount of screen time of any title character ever at 18 minutes, and she only spoke 18 lines of actual dialogue, not counting her songs.
And that's crazy. Mm-hmm. That's so few.
We noticed that she actually does not say anything after she finds out that she's a princess.
Yeah.
literally no dialogue after that.
No. Like, it's really great acting on the animator's part that we didn't really, like, it doesn't stand out. Like, we were looking for it this time, but I never really thought about it before.
Yeah.
Wow. That's nuts.
We have Eleanor Audley as Maleficent, who was Lady Tremaine and, of course, Madame Leota in the parks. And I loved it because I felt like she really got to let loose this time.
Yes.
Lady Tremaine was so buttoned up and, like...
Proper.
And Maleficent just, like... She was showing us what she could do with her voice.
She's the mistress of all evil.
Verna Felton is back again as Flora and the Queen for, I think, the Queen's one or two lines.
Just say, not my baby.
And you're not offended, Your Excellency? Oh, no!
And, of course, she was fairy godmother, Aunt Sarah. She's just kicking around in every Disney movie. She's fabulous. Bill Thompson was King Hubert. He's back again. Smee, Jacques, White Rabbit. Again, he's been kicking around for the last little while.
Oh, wow.
This, I felt he sounded the least Smee-like.
Yeah, I
If
think so.
I didn't know, I probably wouldn't have connected it.
No, I wouldn't have.
And Barbara Letty was Merryweather, and she just played Lady.
That's crazy. And, like, when you said it, I was like, no. But you hear a little, just the way her sentences are structured. I don't know, the way she just goes about it. I'm like, oh, okay.
There's a certain quality in her voice that's, I don't want to say nasal because it's not really nasal, but she has a certain way of speaking, a certain tone.
Throaty or something.
That I do connect with it. But I think that it's good to point out that she and I believe Verna Felton, they were both radio actresses.
Right.
So they were very experienced with using their voices in different ways. And there's a lot more emphasis on it at this time than there is in acting today.
Right.
With the exception of people like who do voice acting for a living.
She's wonderful.
She is. I love her voice. I love her character in this. I love how different it is from Lady as well.
Yeah.
So moving on to the release. It was released on January 29th, 1959 by Buena Vista. It is the last fairy tale remake for a while due to the underperformance at box office. It got mixed reviews. They did compare it favorably to Snow White. They were like, this is a lot like Snow White. But I think that they wanted it to be more like Cinderella.
Yeah.
Secretly. It didn't make enough to cover costs. It was the most expensive Disney film up to that point. I believe the budget was about $6 or $7 million. It was the first time the company had to record a loss in a decade, which led to massive layoffs.
Right.
So like Alice, it wasn't re-released in theaters in Walt's lifetime. They just didn't see the point of it. So it was re-released in 1970 and up to 1995 sporadically in theaters. It was released for home video first in 1986, and in 2008 it was the first Walt Disney produced animated feature to be released on Blu-ray.
Oh.
And most recently it was released in 2014. Now, some inspiration that this Disney movie has had on the Disney world. There's quite a lot. It seeps its way in, most obviously, the castle.
The castle.
The castle. Disneyland, Sleeping Beauty Castle and Walkthrough. It also is the castle in Hong Kong is based on the Sleeping Beauty one, and the Disneyland Paris castle is inspired more by the actual castle in Sleeping Beauty. And the Disneyland Paris castle also features a dragon in the dungeon reminiscent of Maleficent.
Love it.
You can obviously meet Sleeping Beauty and Maleficent at certain times of the year.
Yeah. Is Sleeping Beauty in her pink dress
yes.
at the parks?
Always. We were talking about that. It's weird because throughout 95% of the movie she's wearing her blue dress, but in pretty much any merchandise, it's the pink dress.
Pink dress.
Go figure.
Hi, this is Aly from the future. Well, present editing room. Anyway, we put this on our website in our show notes, but I just wanted to clear up that we actually figured out the reason why Aurora is always in her pink dress. We, after recording that episode, went to the biggest Sleeping Beauty fan we know, which was our manager, and we asked her, and she said it basically comes down to marketing. So because they already had Cinderella in her blue dress, they wanted to kind of have brand recognition with Aurora, so they put her in her pink dress for everything, because that way, if you saw a blonde in a blue dress, it was Cinderella, and if you saw a blonde princess in a pink dress, it was Aurora. And this only became more and more important as merchandising became more of a thing. So if you think about all of the product that you see Aurora in, most of it she's in her pink dress to distinguish her from Cinderella. And actually, if you look at all of the Disney princesses in the Disney Princess line, you'll notice that most of their dresses are completely different colors, or if they're a similar color, then they're a completely different silhouette. And this helps with marketing and merchandising because You see that princess, you know exactly who she is immediately right off the bat, and there's no room for confusion. So yeah, that's the answer. It's solved. Hurrah. And back to this 3-year-old recording.
The fairies do show up in parades occasionally. Of course, Phantasmic.
Right.
Big dragon, Maleficent. In the Festival of Fantasy in Walt Disney World parade. It's a really cool parade. I highly recommend, if you haven't seen it, to look it up online. The dragon shows up there, and it's almost this weird steampunky feel to it.
Ooh.
It's really cool. Then you have the Akershus restaurant in the Norway Pavilion in Epcot, which was kind of linked to Sleeping Beauty for a little while. And then, of course, she's everywhere in the Disney Princess lineup.
Oh, yeah.
She's a major part of that. And as for movies and television, we have Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather are the teachers in Sophia the First, which is a Disney Junior show.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. I love that show.
It's really cute. You have in Once Upon a Time, Aurora, Maleficent, and Philip showed up for a little while. Descendants, second one's coming out this summer. Main character is Mal, who is the daughter of Maleficent, who is played by Kirsten Chenoweth, who's adorable. Once Upon a Dream is constantly re-recorded by Disney artists. Lana Del Rey did it for the movie that I'm going to talk about in 2 seconds.
Love that version.
Emily Osmond did it at one point.
Oh, yeah.
Sleeping Beauty and characters show up in Kingdom Hearts. Mm-hmm. All the usual stuff. And then, of course, we have the Maleficent movie, starring Angelina Jolie and Elle Fanning.
So good.
I really enjoyed it.
Me too.
I really liked it. I know a lot of people didn't like how Maleficent turned evil because of a guy, but I thought that, and spoilers, the fact that he cut off her wings,
Like, fuck that guy.
it was like a violation.
Yeah.
And I felt that they dealt with it in a very important way.
I liked it.
In a very
It made sense.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't just like, oh, it's a guy. No,
Yeah.
like, kind of ruined her life, so.
Yeah, it was very much like an interesting story, and I thought it was very well done. And I thought Angelina Jolie was fabulous as Maleficent.
She did a great job.
And the styling of her, so good. Mm-hmm. They actually put prosthetics over her cheekbones to give her that look.
Looks perfect.
Yeah, she looked amazing. So I'm a fan.
Me too. Would watch again.
Yeah. And that is pretty much where Sleeping Beauty lives. in
Everywhere.
Source material and Disney history.
All right.
Goodbye.
But when will I see you again?
Oh, never.